sun hung mercilessly over the red Arizona desert, burning every grain of sand into a reflection of gold and fire. A lone rider moved across the canyon trail, a man named Luke Carson, a rancher turned wanderer, carrying nothing but a saddlebag and the guilt of a past he couldn't leave behind. His horse limped from exhaustion, its breath heavy in the dry air. Luke wasn't looking for trouble. He was looking for peace, though in the west, peace was rarer than rain. By dusk, he stumbled into a valley he'd never seen before, one surrounded by rocky cliffs and dotted with smoke from distant fires. He didn't know it yet, but he had just crossed into Apache territory. Luke dismounted and walked slowly, raising his hands when he saw the shadow of men emerge from the brush. They were proud warriors, faces painted, eyes sharp, bows drawn. He spoke softly, explaining he was only passing through seeking water. But strangers weren't trusted here. Before he could say more, a blow struck his back, and darkness claimed him. When he awoke, he was bound to a wooden post in the center of a camp, surrounded by dozens of eyes, some filled with hatred, some with curiosity. The Apache chief, a man of great stature named Tenaya, stood before him. "You ride into our land with a weapon," he said sternly. "You bring the scent of white men who took our homes." Luke tried to explain, but his words were lost in the wind. Among the crowd stood a young woman, her hair braided, her eyes dark as storm clouds. She was called Naya. Her gaze lingered on Luke longer than anyone else's. There was something in his face that didn't match the cruelty she had been taught to expect. That night, as the camp slept, she brought him water in silence. He whispered a thank you, his voice raw. She didn't answer, but her hands trembled. He saw something there. Compassion, perhaps forbidden. For days, the tribe debated his fate. Some wanted him released. Others demanded his death as a warning. Luke remained calm, though fear sat heavy in his chest. Naya visited again, learning more about this quiet man who spoke of the stars and the soil as though they were sacred. She learned that he had once fought in wars but now hated violence. She told him about her people, their suffering, and the anger that filled their hearts. They spoke through whispers and stolen moments. When a group of settlers rode near the valley one night, shots were fired. A skirmish broke out, and Luke broke free to protect a wounded child. He took an arrow to the arm, but shielded the boy with his body. When the dust cleared, the tribe realized he had risked his life, not as an enemy, but as one of them. That act changed everything. Tenaya spared him and allowed him to stay until he healed. Days turned into weeks, and Luke found peace in their world. Naya taught him their language. He helped mend fences and build shelters. Slowly, affection bloomed, like desert flowers after a rare rain. But love between an Apache woman and an outsider was forbidden. They kept it hidden, knowing discovery could mean death. Still, when the nights grew cold and stars filled the sky, Luke would whisper her name like a prayer. One evening, a scout brought grave news. A nearby army unit had discovered the valley and was preparing to attack. Luke, torn between loyalty to Naya and the tribe, rode out alone to warn them. When he returned, soldiers followed his tracks. Chaos erupted at dawn. Gunfire, smoke, screams. Luke fought to protect the camp, but when the smoke cleared, he was captured. The soldiers accused him of betrayal, while the tribe, seeing the carnage, believed he had led them there. Caught between two worlds, Luke stood silently as they tied him to the center post once more. This time, not as a stranger, but as a man accused of betraying love itself. The sun rose, pale and cruel over the camp that morning. Dust hung heavy in the air as Luke stood bound to the wooden post. His shirt was torn, his skin burned, and his spirit, though battered, refused to bend. The Apache warriors formed a circle around him. At the center stood Tenaya, holding a ceremonial bow, his face solemn. "You brought death to our people," the chief declared. "And now death will answer." Luke didn't speak. He looked instead toward the edge of the crowd, searching for her. And there she was, Naya, her face streaked with tears, her braids loose, her hands shaking as she pushed through the crowd. "Father," she cried to the chief. "He is not the enemy. He saved my life. He saved our people." But her voice was drowned in the chants of the tribe. The bowstring tightened. The arrow aimed straight at Luke's heart. Time slowed. Dust swirled in the morning light like ghosts. Naya ran forward, her voice breaking with a scream that carried across the canyon. "Don't kill my husband!" The crowd fell silent. Even the chief froze. For a moment, no one breathed. The word husband echoed like thunder. Tanaya's eyes widened in disbelief. "What did you say?" he asked, his voice trembling. Naya stood before Luke, arms outstretched, defying her father's command. "I love him," she said. "I chose him. He fought for us, not against us." Tears streamed down her face as she looked back at Luke. Her heart breaking. The chief lowered his bow slowly, confusion and sorrow battling in his eyes. The tribe murmured, some angry, some moved. Luke, weak from pain, whispered, "She deserves better." But Naya shook her head, placing her hand over his heart. "I chose you," she said again. Silence fell so deep it could break. The chief finally spoke. "Then your fate is tied to his." He dropped the bow and turned away. "Leave this place before the sun sets. You are no longer of this tribe." Luke and Naya were freed, their ropes falling into the dust. She helped him stand, their hands trembling as they faced the open desert together. Behind them, the tribe watched as the lovers walked away, exiled, but alive. They rode into the horizon, the sky stretching endless and blue, their hearts heavy but unbroken. Love had cost them everything. Yet it was the one thing that made the world worth enduring. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, Naya whispered, "Where will we go?" Luke smiled faintly, blood still on his shirt, and said, "Anywhere, as long as it's with you." And so they disappeared into legend. Two souls bound by fate, remembered not for how they lived, but for how they refused to let love die. And if you felt that story in your heart, if you believe love can conquer even the harshest deserts, make sure you subscribe to my channel right now for more powerful Western stories like this one. Every tale here carries a heartbeat, a lesson, and a moment that'll stay with you long after the video ends.